Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tackling Basketball Podcast. I'm Evan.
And I'm Jonathan.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a lot to talk about today, so we are going to jump right into it with, of course, our weekly segment of GOAT and Dick of the Week. And just to change things up a little bit, we'll start with Dick this week instead of GOAT. So, Jonathan, how about you give us your Dick of the Week?
Oh, man, I wasn't expecting to go first, especially with this item. My Dick of the Week is the entire NBA, including fans, media personnel, and many players, in specifically when it comes to the MVP conversation. I think that I have even been a part of this to a degree, just hammering home hard how strongly Jokic should be the MVP, and I'll stand by that. But I think that a lot of us have lost sight at how incredible of a season it is that we're having and how incredible the top talent is. And it's gotten incredibly toxic around this debate right now, just to the point where, players have resorted to bashing each other rather than trying to prop themselves up. Same with media, but that started even earlier. And some players are starting to be completely turned off by the debate. It's a lot of wasted energy is going into figuring out who deserves to be number one. When in reality, there are at least three players who deserve to be number one, and who we can all celebrate and really have an incredible time watching, because this is just an amazing time for the NBA, but we are trying our best to ruin it.
Damn.
Yeah. Didn't expect that, did you?
Yeah, very mature, well-thought argument and point there, but I like it. I agree. The NBA has certainly devolved when it comes to award season. That is for damn sure.
Yeah.
On the flip side of maturity, we have my Dick of the Week, Daniel Snyder. For those who don't know who Daniel Snyder is, he is the owner and president of the Washington Commanders. Everybody knows, or at least if you pay attention to the NFL, he has more allegations and scandals against him than you can count. The Commanders are the dumpster fire of the NFL. Their stadium is by far and away the worst in the NFL. It has needed to be renovated or just demolished for probably the past decade now. Fans have legitimately gotten hurt because the stadium is so bad, because he refuses to spend money on it.
Yeah.
But now he's trying to sell the team because I think he sees the writing on the wall of having the team just removed from him, which would mean that he would no longer have leverage to ask for his asking price, which he has set at $6 billion.
Yep.
Which the Commanders are not worth that.
They'll probably get it.
Yeah, they'll get it. But
yeah.
Head coach of the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, somebody told him what Daniel Snyder was asking, and Mike McDaniel cracked jokes about it. I was what? But then the other thing is, and this is why he's the Dick of the Week, is Jeff Bezos has been trying to buy the Commanders for the longest time, has essentially offered everything Daniel Snyder wants, and because Daniel Snyder is a petty bitch, and he has a grudge against Jeff Bezos for whatever reason, he refuses to sell it to him, even though Jeff Bezos would be a phenomenal owner because he has so much money. So screw Daniel Snyder.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, screw Daniel Snyder. I can't wait for him to no longer be an owner in the NFL. The Commanders will be so much better off without him. Hopefully the sale comes sooner rather than later.
The only objection I have to this being your GOAT of the week is I thought that we had a rule where Dan Snyder can't be the Dick of the Week because he would be there every week. But
we had to throw him in here at some point, so
yeah, that's fair. I suppose this was a good week for it, but never again, because he'll be here every week.
Fair enough.
So moving on to my GOAT for the week, I have the Raiders owner Mark Davis. And this comes on the foot of news that sports books will be allowed to operate in stadiums on game day in the NFL, which is huge news for every owner. Honestly, you could put any owner's name in this list or every owner's name on this list. Except for Dan Snyder. But Mark Davis owns a stadium in Vegas. I mean, this is, I think, what to not to borrow the colloquialism from sports books, but this is what he was betting on.
Yeah.
Was that he would be able to capitalize on the gambling market within Las Vegas, and his gamble just hit really big. The Vegas Raiders might become the most valuable franchise in the entire NFL within a couple of years, just because it is such a huge market down there, and he's just going to get another piece of that market now.
Yeah. And I'm sure he was probably one of the main owners that spearheaded this whole movement and trying to get this passed.
Oh, without a doubt.
Congrats to Mark Davis and all of the millions upon millions of dollars he's going to be making.
Billions.
All right, my goat of the week is going to go with Shaedon Sharpe, and I know this is now the second Blazer that I have had in a goat of the week. I'm a bit of a homer, I'm sorry, but Shaedon here, as the season is beginning to close out, as he is finally getting the minutes that Blazers fans have been asking Chauncey Billups to give him all season long. Shaedon has been showing out and has been looking like the lottery pick that the Blazers were supposed to be getting when they drafted him. When they drafted him, he'd coming off an injury. Everybody knew he had high upside, but nobody knew what he can do. Now it's looking like the Blazers actually made a very good decision. Great athleticism. He's been dunking on people. He's actually been shooting very well. Solid percentage from three and from the field. So he's looking like a good running mate next to Dame. And I think this last couple weeks of the season here will essentially just solidify him as kind of the starting three for the Blazers next season, more than likely.
Yeah, huge position of need too. So
yeah.
You couldn't have asked for a better situation for the Blazers fandom.
Thank God.
Yeah, they're hurting a little bit right now.
Just a bit. So. With that being said, hop on over to kind of all things NFL here. Lots of trade rumors going on this weekend. I mean, just an absolute shitstorm of, between Lamar and the Broncos apparently thinking about trading away wide receivers, and Sean Payton saying, no, we're not, but then the GM kind of saying, maybe we will. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. But, of course, the big one, Lamar Jackson this weekend through social media officially saying he has requested a trade from the Baltimore Ravens. What are your thoughts, and where do you think he winds up?
The Colts makes the most sense. Answer your second question first. They have a really high pick in the draft. They have a need at the position. And they are likely not going to be able to get a franchise quarterback with that draft pick, even if they wanted to hold on to it. So they make the most sense as the target, and they've even come out and said that they are going to consider it, weigh their options and whatnot. But as for my thoughts, Lamar Jackson is doing exactly what he deserves to be doing and what he should be doing, and the Ravens are confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, a sign-and trade is one of the best case scenarios for the Ravens at this point, honestly. So it's a better outlook than it was last week. Just being able to actually have a little bit of leverage with what you're going to get in return, and to be able to part of the reason that teams maybe weren't willing to give up 2 firsts on the non-exclusive franchise tag was because he wasn't guaranteed for more than 1 year on that non-exclusive tag. But if he accepts a sign-and trade, then both teams are going to be in a better situation. There's going to be more teams interested in him, and I think while the Ravens should just hold on to him and pay him what he's owed, this is probably their next best option.
Yeah, I'm sure Ravens fans are absolutely livid
right
now. I mean, they've got to be so pissed at their GM and that entire front office. I mean, this is supposed to be the savior of Baltimore coming off of Joe Flacco, but here we are, 4 years later? I think 4 or 5 years later, and Lamar's gone. So it's like, I agree with you, though. I think the Colts make the most sense in terms of what Baltimore should be looking for from the trade. I also think, from the Colts' perspective, Chris Ballard has come out, and his mindset is he's not going to take a guy unless he is 100% confident that they can be good. So So when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, I mean, realistically, even in this draft, I mean, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud maybe might be in that 100% category, but even maybe not then. And I mean, Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, absolutely not. So Chris is definitely not taking that quarterback with the 4th pick because C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young will be gone by then. So it makes so much more sense for him to pivot, grab Lamar, who he has all the tape. He knows is very good. He knows can work. Pairing him with Jonathan Taylor would be phenomenal. And it would also appease Jim Irsay, because Jim Irsay, I think, is on. I think this is Chris Ballard's last season here to try and right this ship.
Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be some urgency from the Colts organization, but I could also see the Atlanta Falcons making sense. I think culturally that would be a very good fit for him. They're desperate. They're in need of a new quarterback, and they're a very young team. Then after that, I mean, maybe the Jets. I mean, the Jets should go after him, but apparently they're really locked into Aaron Rodgers, which, as a Packers fan, fine by me. But
especially fine by you. I almost made the Packers against your own advice, the GOAT of the week, prematurely, like I did to the Bears a couple weeks ago, because the Jets owner has come out really recently and said that he is starting to get nervous and he is starting to really push hard for a trade to occur. And with this sort of war of attrition that is going on right now, both sides just trying to eke out every last penny, an owner coming out and saying that he is desperate and he wants the move to get done is not going to be good for the owner's team.
Yeah, not at all. So somehow the Packers are playing this very well, which is rare for the Packers front office, but here we are.
Yeah.
But moving from Lamar Jackson over to the Denver Broncos, which the Denver Broncos have been kind of quiet until this whole wide receiver trade rumor thing started up. Apparently, according to some people around the league, both Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are on the block, and Denver has been talking to other teams about them. And it sounds like Denver is wanting a 1st or a 2nd round pick to try and move up into that area of the draft because after trading for Russell Wilson, they don't have any picks in those rounds. But what do you think? As a Broncos fan, how would you feel about having Court or Jerry traded away for maybe a 2nd if the Broncos get lucky?
So the limited information I have on it is exactly what I think should be happening, which is Sean Payton is backing his guys, which is huge. Sean Payton does not want the wide receivers to be traded, and he wants them to know that. Mm-hmm. So if they don't get moved, then hopefully chemistry won't hurt. On the flip side, reports are also that the Broncos' asking price is high and that they intend to be greedy and not take a deal that doesn't really benefit them. Mm-hmm. And that means, from what I've been reading, a 1st-round pick for Jeudy or an early 2nd-round pick for Sutton. And I think that is a decent idea. Neither of them have had a very sustained period of success with Denver recently. I mean, Jeudy has had his 6-game streak of great success at the end of last season, but that's the first show of promise that we've had so far. So if we're able,
the receiver was hurt, so that could have played a part too.
So if we're able to get a 1st-round pick for him, I'd say that's probably a good trade. Same with Courtland. He has not looked the same since his injury. I have his jersey. I love him. I want him to stay. But an early 2nd for him is also probably a good deal for us. It's something that I'm a big believer in. Everyone should always be on the block, except for maybe your franchise quarterback. Just you need to get the right value for him. Mm-hmm. So if the reports are true, then the Broncos are seeking the correct value for them. And either outcome is probably positive.
Got it. I like it. It's also interesting, too, because, coming off of last season, Jerry and Russ kind of towards the end of the season started to look like they had some chemistry, but, really through the first 3 quarters of the season, Russ, Court, and Jerry were just not on the same page at all. So, that could be some justification, too, of, bringing a receiver who Russ can actually work with, because, who knows? Maybe Court and Jerry just aren't vibing with Russell Wilson. Granted, they were also in Nathaniel Hackett's offense. But
that's exactly what I blame. It was so frustrating watching last season. There were so many, because I mean, do you have just the really blatant errors that everyone found out with Hackett, where like he has no idea how to manage a clock? He's going to get you countless penalties because he doesn't get to play into the huddle until there's 5 seconds until the play, like you have to hike it. It's just unsustainable. But beyond that, his play calling was not tailored to this offense at all. Like, he was having Courtland Sutton run go routes on the left side of the field, which is exactly Russell Wilson's single worst route to hit. And also one of Courtland's worst routes to run. None of it made any sense. Yeah. And I'm hopeful that with Sean Payton and a new staff, some of these supposed chemistry issues will start to go away, because they weren't chemistry issues. They were horrible play design. But time will tell there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Over to another wide receiver situation, probably the biggest wide receiver name on the market right now that can be changing teams. DeAndre Hopkins has been told by the Cardinals, similar to what Aaron Rodgers was told, yes, you can go start talking to other teams, and if you find a team you like, we will try and figure out a trade for you. Where do you think he ends up? I mean, what teams do you think are going to be willing to trade? Because I'm sure the Cardinals would be asking for a decent amount. Granted, they got him for peanuts, so maybe not, but
I'm not sure they will be asking for much. And the reason is his contract is pretty heavy.
That's true.
In fact, there were reports that I heard that a couple of GMs consider his contract to be negative, to the point where like the Cardinals would have to give up assets to move on from him. Now, I'm not sure that necessarily is correct. I'm guessing that they can still probably get rid of him and acquire a 3rd or 4th round pick, but my guess is as far as draft capital and like trade capital, he will be one of the cheaper wide receivers in this offseason, which will make it an interesting game. So I almost expect him to not be moved for a while, because teams are still trying to figure out their own their own cap situation.
Yeah.
So if a team discovers that they have enough on the books and nothing else to spend it on, they will be more than happy to give up the draft capital to acquire Hopkins. But until they are certain of their money situation, I'm not sure he'll get moved.
Yeah. It's fair. Part of me almost expect I'm sure the Chiefs will go after him. I mean, I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would love to be given a true wide receiver one, because let's be honest, he did not have that last year. Juju was fine, but essentially he has Travis Kelce and then a bag of random tools.
I mean, Travis Kelce is enough on his own.
No, he is, but
especially with a mind like Andy Reid, there's just no way to stop it.
Absolutely. But then, I mean, besides the Chiefs, I'm just trying to think of teams who would be competitive enough to take on that contract, who need a wide receiver one. Outside of the Chiefs, I'm not really sure I can think of anybody, because, I mean, the Bills, sure, I'm sure the Bills would love to have another wide receiver to pair with Stephon Diggs, but they also have Gabriel Davis, and they have their tight end, Dawson Knox, right? So they don't really need him, and I'm sure they don't have the cap space for him. Eagles don't need him. Vikings don't need him. Packers don't need him. No one... I'm sure they're not going to trade him within the NFC West, just out of spite.
Yeah, because I almost think the Seahawks would be a decent destination for him. I mean, the Seahawks don't really need more help at wide receiver right now, but at the same time, they have really high cap space right now, and would be interested in another veteran presence probably. Just seems like a Pete Carroll guy, but I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. Maybe the Cardinals will just...
Maybe the Panthers.
That could, yeah. I mean, if you get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud and you want to give them an immediate weapon to work in there, yeah, that could make sense. We'll see, because I'm sure they have a decent amount of cap space right now, because they don't have anybody good on their roster to eat that up. Turning to our good old friend Google here to figure this out.
You were supposed to stall in a more coy way.
Oh, well, you know.
$27 million.
Oh yeah, so they could eat it.
For now, they could eat it, but
Yeah.
we'll see what they do. The rest of free
Granted,
agency in the draft.
Number 1 overall pick quarterback is going to net you a pretty hefty salary there. So
I'm also not certain that this includes the withholding for draft capital. But
alrighty. Well, over to our final big NFL thing. Going along with my earlier slander of Daniel Snyder, apparently there is now an ownership group or a purchasing group that includes Magic Johnson, of all people, who has sent in an offer to Daniel Snyder. It meets his $6 billion asking point. Reading the article, it said that everyone involved in the situation is optimistic that it will happen before the draft, which would be huge for the Commanders organization. But at the same time, it might be negative for the Commanders organization to be in the midst of a ownership change right before the draft. But it's also Daniel Snyder, so I don't think there's any negative that can come out of getting rid of him. But
it'd be such an interesting draft team, though.
Yeah.
You haven't even given Sam Howell a chance really to show himself, but you've been trying to develop him. Do you wait another year for a quarterback, or do you try and grab someone who's falling in this draft?
Do you try and grab Lamar Jackson?
Do you try and go for Lamar Jackson? Yeah. It's going to be an interesting year for the Commanders for many reasons, certainly including their ownership.
Yeah, but that will be huge for the Commanders organization. I'm sure we would very quickly see a new stadium happen, because I don't think there are many people that could see fans getting hurt at their venue and say, meh.
The only issue is there's not a lot of places to put it in Washington, D.C.
Well, they're actually about 45 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. So
even then, the East
why.
Coast is packed. So
yeah,
they might have to rebuild in place and play somewhere else for a year.
Yeah, which
I don't know.
It is the Commanders. Wouldn't be the end of the world.
All right. Hey, Evan, you like baseball, right?
Yeah, I put this one in here. As we said when we started this podcast, we picked the two sports that we both have knowledge over. Jonathan also has hockey, NHL knowledge, whereas I don't, and I have MLB baseball knowledge. Jonathan doesn't really. So we axed those two sports because...
Hey, I also have lacrosse knowledge.
He also has minor league lacrosse knowledge, or indoor lacrosse knowledge.
Indoor. Yeah, it's not minor.
It's clarification there. But
it's national.
But coming off the World Baseball Classic, just have a few things to chat through. First off, for people who aren't baseball fans, hopefully you watched a little bit of the World Baseball Classic, because it was
really cool.
Electric.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. Seeing those guys, USA put together the frickin' Avengers minus the pitching staff. The pitching staff was garbage. If the pitching staff was better, Team USA has a decent chance of beating Japan there. It was a close game already. But the offense, though, was frickin' stacked. Japanese team, also incredible. Big thing that I wanted to point out, though, as much as this pains me to say, I think baseball is now Japan's sport. In the semifinal, 47% of Japanese households were tuned in to Team Japan's game.
No way.
In the semifinals. And when Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout, 97% of Japanese households were watching that game.
That has to be doctored. There's no way.
Baseball is huge in Japan. And the thing that I love about it is that it is baseball in its purest form. They haven't added the pitch clock. They haven't made the bases bigger. Granted, bases bigger was to protect players, so I get it. But they haven't added the pitch clock. They haven't been messing around with electronic umpires. They run the game as it's supposed to, and Japan loves their players. Who was it? NBA player for the Washington Wizards, Japanese guy. He came out of the game, I think it was Washington Wizards, came out after the game wearing a Shohei Ohtani jersey. They interviewed him, and he was like, you guys don't understand. Shohei Ohtani is like a superhero. in Japan. They love their baseball players. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the Wizards.
No, I just Googled Wizards roster, and it had a suggested answer, like, at the very top where it tells you what the correct answer is that Google comes up with, and it was just Kristaps Porzingis.
Surprised it wasn't Bradley Beal, but all right.
Yeah, right? It's a little disrespectful.
But needless to say, I think Japan has officially taken the moniker, which makes me sad because I love baseball. But unfortunately, for the sport of baseball, it is saddled with a commissioner and a league office that doesn't understand how to evolve the game to make it interesting to the fans. They're simply just trying to speed it up and kind of bastardize baseball to make it fit in with the fast-paced, action-packed sports that Americans love: basketball, hockey, and football. And rather than instead telling the league, like, get rid of the unwritten rules of guys bat flipping on you when they hit a home run, allowing guys to wear whatever kind of cleats they want, like the NBA did, which was a huge thing for the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Twitter accounts are there dedicated to following what shoes guys wear on court? I mean, it's a huge thing.
Give Jokic a colorway.
But the MLB is still behind it. Also, the other issue with the MLB is that it doesn't seem like any of the best players are interested in being the face.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you saw a commercial with Mike Trout?
Yeah.
You have they don't, and I'm not sure, maybe it's like it's Nike not asking Mike Trout to do it, or it's Gatorade not, but something needs to change in the MLB. Otherwise, American baseball is going to just keep falling further and further behind these other countries because Japan looked damn good. All right, well, that was our baseball rant
for the month.
Yeah, for quite a while. Well, that ends it. Unless the
It was
Mets,
a good rant.
Unless the Mets win the World Series, then maybe I'll pop off. Or if the Mets don't make playoffs, that'll be another rant.
For sure.
But we'll transition over to America's third sports league, the NBA. Just kind of general chat here. Standings, MVP conversation. So, Jonathan, I'm sure you're itching to talk about the MVP situation.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to it earlier, but what do you have to say now about this Jokic-Embiid battle?
Oh, my pick for most valuable Philadelphian this year is Jalen Hurts, without a doubt. I think that he has been by far and away the best the best player in Philadelphia, and I think the award has to go to him.
Absolutely ruthless. I'm sure this stems out of the fact that Joel Embiid refuses to play in Denver.
So on the actual NBA MVP conversation, I am more frustrated with Embiid than I have maybe ever been. And most of my frustration throughout the entire debate over the last 3 years has stemmed from media and fans just having a lot of strange takes, in my opinion, and a lot of wavering opinions where 1 week they'll say that Jokic doesn't care enough about basketball. The next week they'll say that he is stat padding because the only thing he cares about is his individual greatness. And the next week they'll say that I don't get why he doesn't care about the award. He should really care. They just can't make up their mind, and that's frustrating. But this week, Embiid himself frustrated me when he very directly and against the character of, honestly, even himself, just targeted Jokic, insulted his defense, insulted his his just basketball. What's the word I used earlier? His basketball integrity, and I mean, it's really rare to see heat thrown between NBA stars nowadays. It's just there's a lot more respect in the game right now for other stars, and I think it's a good thing that we have that. But for Embiid to not only call out Jokic so directly, but then decide, or maybe it wasn't entirely his decision, but he didn't even play the day after against Jokic to give Jokic a chance to back himself up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you gotta stand up for your own words, and you gotta give someone else a chance to rebuttal. And I have mad props for Jokic for his response after the game, because I was tweeting up a storm, honestly, and Jokic comes out after the game and just has nothing but praise for Embiid. And that was part of my inspiration for the earlier rant on the entire NBA is being stupid with the MVP debate right now, was just, I mean, if Jokic himself can take the high ground and just enjoy another player's game that much, then why can't we? But Jokic is still the MVP in my mind.
Fair.
Yeah.
I think you pretty much covered it. I don't have too much of a stake in the matter. I do think that Jokic should be MVP. But like I've said before, if Joel Embiid wins it, it's not like it's going to be some ridiculous, outlandish thing that Embiid wins. They've both been phenomenal this season. But yeah,
Giannis has too.
Like, I know. The fact
he doesn't get enough talk.
I know. Giannis won 2 MVPs, and now the league is like, all right, I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah.
But over now to standings. Do you think there's going to be much change? I mean, right now, teams are starting to get eliminated. We're down to 7 games left in the season. Couple of teams, Washington Wizards, Indiana Pacers, Dallas Mavericks, Utah Jazz, sitting just outside the play-in. I'm going to let the Blazers just die because I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be much movement into the play-in games? Do you think there's going to be much movement in the standings themselves? What do you see happening here in the last week of basketball?
None in the East. Yeah, the Pacers are the only one with really a chance to eke into the play-in game that aren't currently in a play-in game. But at the same time, they're 3 games back, and it's such an uphill battle with they've only got 8 games left, which is more than some teams, but it's not going to be an easy fight for a pretty middling team to try and get in. In the West, it's so interesting, especially with Dallas currently sitting on the outside looking in.
It's crazy.
What a disaster their season has turned into, where they were they the 6th seed when they acquired Kyrie?
I believe so. They were 6th or 7th,
Yeah.
Because I talked about them moving up into home court advantage for the first round, and clearly I was very wrong on that one. But
I think they have already guaranteed lost that.
Granted, to be fair, they're only 3 games back from the 4 seed. But
3.5. It's a tight race in the West, and we will start to see. I don't know what's going to happen. We will see movement. I'm not sure I'm going to make any bets or predictions.
I foresee the Clippers overtaking the Suns, especially with Kevin Durant out. Suns have been skating lately. I see the Clippers moving into that 4th spot. Timberwolves will probably hang. I think the top 6 are pretty much cemented. Maybe the Warriors overtake the Timberwolves, but the Warriors on the road have been kind of trash lately, so I don't have much confidence in them. Really, the only team that I see maybe falling out of play-in would be the Thunder. Just because they're so young, I could see them down the stretch here just not having the kind of the fortitude to play through. And then I would probably see the Dallas Mavericks pushing into that spot, similar with the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are right there, but they're also very young. Let's be honest, they're a rebuilding team. They should have no business making the playoffs. But I can see the Mavericks with Kyrie and Luka in the last week here pushing hard. But we'll see. I could also, after the past month and a half, I could see them faltering too. But
I can't imagine them missing it, except I can imagine both Kyrie and Luka trying to take the team on their back. Yeah. And I think that's been their problem, is they need to figure out who is the leader of this team and actually commit to that in their game plan. Because while they are both continuing to put up amazing individual statistics every game, they are not playing well off of each other.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah, Maverick front office looks a bit stupid right now, but
honestly, I might put it more on their coaching, but I don't know. I think that I wouldn't have probably made the trade. But at the same time, I think the coach is who needs to step up right now and determine the best game plan for them moving forward in order to maximize both players' effectiveness. Because, I mean, you should not have 2 stars of this caliber, especially when one of them is an excellent player at creating plays for his teammates.
Yeah.
And they just are struggling to run an efficient offense. Or an efficient defense either. Moving on from the NBA, not necessarily, but
over to our weekly betting or gambling segment here, our 100 units and 10,000 to 1 bets. So, Jonathan, what do you have for your 100 units bet this week around?
You know, playoffs are starting to creep a little closer, and I know I'm going to be renewing similar bets frequently now that playoffs are nearly upon us. But I also really wanted to go ahead and capture maybe one of the best odds that I will get on a just 2-leg parlay. The Nuggets to win their championship and the Avs to win their championship. That'll give me plus 7,100, which is honestly not as good as I expected, but it is better than I need. So I think that both teams should be like favorites right now, honestly. Just not necessarily because the Nuggets are inherently the best team, but because I think that they should have the easiest path through their respective conference, meaning that most of what you're betting on is hopefully the finals. I mean, it's a franchise that has yet to ever make it to a finals, so I am somewhat on a wing and a prayer right now, but I do believe that they should be able to.
This is probably the best team the Nuggets have ever put on the floor. So
the most complete team, I think, for sure.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to continue on, of course, with the March Madness betting, coming off of already cementing my championship of winning our March Madness pool for all of our college buddies.
I hate March Madness.
And the best part is that the best bracket was my favorite mascot bracket, which very fitting with March Madness. But going off of that, I have to stick with the 2 teams that I put into the championship in that bracket. So I am picking San Diego State and UConn money lines at plus 147 for this week. Betting a unit on it. A, because it will just make me feel really amazing at my March Madness prowess. And B, I mean, San Diego State has looked amazing, beating Creighton. Creighton is no slouch of a team. They're also going up against the 9th seed, and I know FAU has looked really good, but at some point the Cinderella story has to end. And then UConn is UConn. I mean, UConn has been dominant. They demolished Gonzaga. I mean, in a very good Gonzaga team. So I see UConn taking that one, and then further from there, I see UConn winning it all, but I haven't put a bet on that one yet.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, over to you for your 10,000 to 1 for this week, which is a bit of a doozy.
It might be a little bit more than 10,000 to 1, actually. I mean, technically that is, the segment name is a little bit of a lie because we look for plus 10,000 odds, not 10,000 to 1 odds, but whatever. I've sort of wanted to bet this one for a little while, but this slate of games has been very profitable for it and is maybe the most reasonable yet this year. Not to say that it is reasonable at all, but I'm betting every single underdog in Tuesday's NBA slate. That's a 10-leg parlay, Pacers over Bucks, Heat over Knicks, Rockets over Nets, Mavericks over Sixers, Clippers over Grizzlies, Pistons over Thunder, Lakers over Bulls, Jazz over Spurs, Kings over Blazers over Kings, Bulls over Lakers. I got that so wrong. Every underdog, and it's not going to hit in a million years. I might actually make a unofficial bet that I don't post to this with a couple of these underdogs in a parlay, because there are a couple that I genuinely think will hit. But the 10-leg parlay, every underdog is plus 50 million. I opted to put 1/100th of a unit just to sort of give you a chance to catch up when this inevitably hits.
Yeah,
so that's only going to give me 50,000 units.
Our game there would end. We would keep doing the segment, but we would no longer be keeping track because there would be no point unless Jonathan just turned into a degenerate gambler.
I will be putting 10,000 unit bets out from now on if that hits.
Well, mine, I'm sticking with my MLB theme today. I'm just really feeling baseball with opening day rolling just around the corner coming up here on Thursday. So I decided to go ahead and put a parlay together, 15-leg parlay, betting on every single opening day MLB game. I'll go ahead and read them off because why not? Yankees over Giants, Braves over Washington Nationals, Orioles over Red Sox, Brewers over Cubs, Rays over Detroit Tigers, Phillies over the Rangers, Pirates over the Reds, Padres over the Rockies. Sorry, buddy.
Boo.
Twins over the Royals, Cardinals over the Blue Jays, Mets over the Marlins, Astros over the White Sox, Guardians over the Mariners. Sorry to my Seattle buddies. Angels over the A's, and Dodgers over the Diamondbacks. That is plus 306,966. Put half a unit on that. I'm sure I'm going to miss on a few of these games, but
honestly, that's not enough plus odds for that bet. That's so many legs.
It's a lot of legs. I did pick the projected winning team on a lot of these,
for sure.
But
I mean, you're going to be so pissed when the Rockies are the one that breaks it.
God, I swear to God.
You see, what you have forgotten, Evan, is that we've solved our problems. You saw this last offseason. We have a new third base coach. Nothing can hurt us anymore. We are so set for the future. So,
thank you all so much for listening. It's been a pleasure chatting at you this week. Jonathan, do you have anything to close us out here?
Russell Wilson is coming back this year, baby.
Amen. Good night.
Good night.